All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maggie Wolford. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruitment and Admissions here in the Thomas J. Watson School of Engineering and Applied Science. And we just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for our Fall 2020 Update webinar. This session is specifically for domestic students. We had an international student session last week so that we could answer questions from them about visa processing and things like that. So if you are an international student on this session, please identify yourself via the Q&A so that we can try to give you that recording and give you some more specific information for your situation. So like I said, thank you all for joining us. We're going to do a brief overview of the agenda for today's session. So to start, I will introduce you all to the panelists and chat moderators that we have. We're going to do a brief update regarding the COVID-19 situation here in New York and at Binghamton University. We're going to go through the university president, Harvey Stanger's draft plan for restarting Binghamton University and how things will look this fall. We'll then have departments discussing their plans for orientation, registration, and course offerings, and then of course time for Q&A. A couple of quick notes for you before we do the introduction of our panelists. Would be that you may not have done a Zoom webinar before. I think we've all gotten pretty used to Zoom over the last few months, but this is a webinar, not a meeting. So you may have noticed that the chat is disabled, but there is something called Q&A, and so you can submit questions that way. At the end of the session, we will allow you to raise your hand to request being unmuted, and you can ask your questions verbally that way. You should not have the ability to unmute yourself now. If you do, I'm going to be changing that setting momentarily. And when sending a question, whether it's in the chat or you're doing it verbally at the end, please identify your department so that we know sort of who that question needs to be directed at. So if you're asking questions about orientation, registration, we need to know which department should be answering that question. I will also note that we will be sharing the PowerPoint with all of you after this session is over. That will probably go out either tomorrow morning or possibly Monday morning, depending on how quickly we can get it into the system. And we also plan to share a recording of the webinar within the next week or so. If there are other people involved in this decision-making process for you, you know, family members, parents, things like that, certainly feel free to share this information with them. And if there's any other questions that we can address, everyone who's on this session is available afterward as well via email. And so we're happy to help answer your questions. So briefly to let you know who is on the call, there's a number of staff from the Watson School Dean's Office, including myself. As I said, I'm Maggie Wolford, Director of Watson Graduate Recruitment and Admissions. There's also Owusu Boche, who is our graduate recruiter. We have Jung Young Cho, who's the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies, as well as Lisa Gallagher, who is the Assistant Dean for Research and Graduate Studies, Monica Majors, Assistant Dean for Academic Diversity and Inclusive Excellence, and Jessalyn Schaefer, who is our Senior Staff Assistant. We also have a number of other departments represented on this call. So we have Karen Novello, who is from our Office of Graduate Recruitment. If you've got some sort of broader questions about Binghamton, or if by chance you happen to be looking at some of our interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary programs, she'll be able to help address some of those questions. Additionally, we do have representatives from all of our academic departments. So from biomedical engineering, we have Guy German, who's the graduate director. For electrical and computer engineering, we've got Vladimir, who's also the graduate director who does things on the academic side once you come in. Then for computer science, we have Madhu Govindaraju, graduate director of admissions, and then Les Lander, who helps students once they have been admitted to Binghamton and helping them with their courses. For material science and engineering, Professor Cho, who I mentioned earlier, is a faculty member associated with material science, so he'll be able to help answer some of those questions. And then for our Department of System Science and Industrial Engineering, we have Professor Mohammed Kasavne, who is the department chair, as well as Hiroki Sayama, who's the graduate director for System Science, And then 2 staff persons, Erin Hornbeck and Lindsay Bukta, who any of you who are from SSIE have probably been in touch with already, who will be able to help answer questions in the chat as we go. So I know there's a lot of people involved in today's session, and the hope is really to be able to answer your questions as we go. I will note for those of you who are biomedical engineering students, Professor German does have another meeting at 1 p.m. and so he's going to have to leave the call a little bit early. So I would strongly encourage you to send in your questions via the chat sooner rather than later. And when we're unmuting students at the end, you want to make sure that you're putting your hand up as we're getting that started so that we can do any verbal questions again at the start of that part. So with that, let's get started. So the current situation of COVID-19 in New York State. I don't know about the rest of you, but I know many members of my own family have been looking at maps like this constantly, trying to find the hotspots and sort of monitor the situation of COVID-19 here in the United States. So normally we really talk about like, oh, we're only 3 hours from New York City. And we talk about all these things where the last few months it's been more, we're a full 3 hours from New York City. We know that that has been a longtime epicenter of the disease here. And so we want to make sure that we really emphasize Binghamton University, Broome County, we're a full 3 hours from the city. And you can see sort of a comparison of case numbers there. And to give that a little bit more perspective, this is the counts as of last week with all of the different counties within New York. And you can see that Broome County is very far down on the list so far as cases here. We're trying to take a lot of precautions and be careful. And one thing that's been a positive outcome of sort of taking things very seriously and sheltering in place early on is that we've been able to reopen a little bit faster than some other areas of New York, including, again, the city and downstate, which have been hit so hard. So many of you are probably aware of this, but I just wanted to go through it briefly. New York is reopening in phases. So this allows for a loosening of restrictions on a regional basis. And in order to move from one phase to another, the infection rate has to be sufficiently low. The healthcare system has to have capacity to absorb any new cases that are coming in and a potential resurgence of cases. There has to be a certain level of testing going on, and there needs to be robust contact tracing in place. So here in the Southern Tier, we reached phase 1 on May 15th. So you can see some of the industries that sort of reopened with that. We reached phase 2 on May 29th, phase 3 just a week or so ago on June 12th. And we are expected to go into phase 4 actually starting tomorrow. So it's been a gradual reopening. I think people have still been taking things pretty cautiously, but this has had a very big impact on our university and our leadership as we've thought about how to move forward with reopening specifically our campus and Binghamton University. So a few things to let you know about efforts that the university specifically has been taking to look after students and faculty and staff wellness. Binghamton University has made a number of resources available to students, faculty, and staff to help them stay healthy, both mentally and physically. There is a ton of information about this on our website. If you're interested in that, you can go to the link provided. The New York State Health Department also designated Binghamton University as a drive-through COVID-19 testing site for the Broome County region. This is free and appointment only, and it has been expanded to include all first responders, healthcare workers, essential employees, even if they aren't symptomatic, and then of course anyone who is symptomatic. If you go to Binghamton University right now, you're going to see that everyone is wearing a face mask or some kind of face covering that covers both the nose and mouth at all times. Cleaning and disinfection in common and especially high traffic areas has been highly prioritized. So they're doing all they can to keep things clean. And they've also been providing hand sanitizer to all personnel on campus, with refill stations being installed across campus so that people always have that on their person and are able to sort of take care of that themselves. So they've been taking a lot of these things into account and trying to think of how does that affect us moving forward. So last week on May 15th, President Harvey Stanger sent out a draft plan for fall 2020, and we're just going to go through some of the highlights of that with you all, which I'm sure is the main question, like what's going to be happening for fall 2020, and then we'll be talking about the impacts that that has. So first of all, with regard to mode of instruction, all Watson graduate programs will be offering first semester courses in person and online for the fall. So if you're already residing in New York, or if you're in the US and you're planning on coming to New York, you do have flexibility there where you can make that decision. I'm sure many of you are aware Governor Cuomo here in New York has put out an order that affects a few states where if you're coming to New York from, for example, Arizona or the Carolinas, there's other states as well. I will ask my colleagues to please share a link in the chat for everyone so that you can see if that might impact you. But if you're coming from this list of states that the governor has identified right now, you would have to be sheltering in place for 2 weeks before sort of going out into the community. We don't know how long that's going to be in place. We don't know if it's going to be lifted by the time the fall semester starts. This is very, very new. It's only been out for less than a day. And so I would encourage you to be in touch with the graduate school, your department, our office in the dean's office, and we'll try to guide you through that and give you as much information as we can. I will also just note with regard to mode for instruction, instructors are making arrangements for students who are living remotely and taking their classes online. If you go to our website right now, we have a banner system and the bulletin, so you can see the courses that have been scheduled for the fall semester. Those are all supposed to be moving forward. If you are on campus, so if you do come and you decide to take classes in person, just a note that all students and instructors in the classroom will have to be wearing face coverings at all times. And I mentioned a moment ago that they've given all personnel on campus this summer the individual hand sanitizers. They're going to be providing that to all employees and students to allow cleaning of contact surfaces when classes begin and end. And they're also going to be doing refill stations across campus so that you can keep those up to date. And I'm sorry, as full as you need to. So with regard to orientations, there are two that you're going to need to be mindful of as incoming students. One is with the graduate school, which has been scheduled for Monday, August 24th. They'll be sending an email invitation with details about the orientation to your @binghamton.edu email address for those of you who've already been admitted and paid your deposit. So make sure that you're checking that. That email is expected to come out in July. And additionally, you probably have questions about the departmental orientations and course registration process. We're going to let each of the departments speak to how they're handling that momentarily. A couple of other notes, the semester schedule. Binghamton University, as are many universities in the US, is looking to schedule or to maintain its first day of classes, which is going to be August 26th, that's a Wednesday. Normally, you would be getting off Labor Day, fall break. There's a few other holidays, obviously in the fall, but this year, the plan is to go straight through without classes being suspended for any of those holidays. And then after Thanksgiving, classes would be held exclusively online from November 30th to December 7th, at which point you would be turning in final projects and stuff like that remotely. The idea behind that is that starting really later this fall, that's when the normal cold and flu season is revving up. And so it's going to be a lot harder to differentiate between COVID-19 and like the regular cold or flu. And so they're trying to limit the number of people that are on campus once that is going around. I will also note that students have been advised and directed not to travel outside of Broome County. So if you're coming to Binghamton from somewhere else in New York, or you're coming from across the country, the idea would be that you would stay at Binghamton, like within the community, even on weekends, and to not gather in groups of more than 10. Failure to meet these directives, of course, would endanger our ability to maintain the integrity and operation of the university during the fall semester. And so the university is developing a comprehensive set of rules that students are supposed to follow to keep themselves and others safe. And this will include a pledge that you would be accepting as a condition of your attendance on campus. So more details to come on that. Again, a lot of those details would be sent to your @binghamton.edu email address once you've been through the full admission process. So be keeping an eye on that email address. A note on deferment. So as I've been going through how the fall semester is going to be looking here at Binghamton, some of you may be thinking that that doesn't sound like a good fit for you, or that you want to stay at your job a bit longer, because maybe that's more reliable, more solid. And so I just want to make sure that you do have the option to defer your admission. So if you've been admitted for fall 2020 and you choose to defer to either spring or fall 2021, all that would need to happen is we have to get departmental approval. For master's students, that's usually pretty seamless. Departments just will look at your profile, say if they do or don't approve of the deferral, and then we will process it. You'll get an updated acceptance letter telling you that you've been moved to the fall semester or the spring semester, whichever you identified. If you're a PhD student, this may take a couple of extra steps where they're going to need to talk to your faculty advisor. There may be impacts on funding, things like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're in communication with your department in advance. But I just want to make sure you know that if your deferral is approved and you've already been accepted for fall 2020 and you choose to defer and that is approved by the department, then you are guaranteed admission. You're not going through the application process again. It's not like you're being put up against other students for spring or fall 2021. But I want to be very clear that just because your admission is confirmed and guaranteed as you're deferring, funding offers may not be. Again, you want to make sure that you're in touch with departments in advance to see how this might impact any funding or scholarship opportunity that you've been offered. And with regard to cost, I'm going to be going through that actually right now. I'll just go ahead and pull that up, but I wanted to make sure you had the link here for the graduate school's website where they share the cost breakdown. So here you can see the annual tuition and fees for in-state versus out-of-state students. You'll also see this is the 2019-2020 tuition rate. We don't receive the 2020-2021 tuition rate usually until mid-July, and that's always how it's been. This isn't a big impact of COVID or something. That's just our annual calendar. The new tuition rate usually comes out in mid-July. But it doesn't typically change very much. So we're hoping that this will be a good guide for you as you're looking at the tuition and fees as well as the living costs here in Binghamton. You may notice on the graduate school's website or the student accounts website a online tuition rate. And I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that online tuition rate is only applicable if you are taking a full online program. So this is a program that has been approved by SUNY to be an online-only program, no on-campus components. And so I am not aware off the top of my head of any programs within the Watson School that have that particular designation. And so you're going to be paying the in-state or out-of-state tuition rate, not the online tuition rate, because that's just a different thing. I'm sure there's going to be questions about that, but I wanted to try to make that as clear as I could as we get started. So with that, we're going to be hearing from our departments. So we're going to be getting started with the biomedical engineering department, and we're asking each of the departments to share if their department has scheduled an orientation and how it's going to be offered, how the department will have new students register for courses. So is that being done as part of orientation or after orientation, and what courses are available? So to start, we will hear from Guy German.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. So the first thing I'd like to do is congratulate all biomedical engineering students on their foresight and their excellent choice of department given the current pandemic. I can answer these questions pretty simply. The department orientation is August 21st. It'll be 12 till 1 p.m. for the 4+1 students. It'll be 1 to 2 p.m. for the master's and PhD students. For registration, I'm working with Kathy Fexo to make sure that we can do this orientation both in person and online. And we will be sending you updates out in the coming weeks, I believe. And the short answer to what courses will be available, we anticipate so far that all courses will be able to be taken both in person and online as well. We're trying to adopt a hybrid technique where we can do both. Please stay tuned and we will make sure that any specific questions we answer. But if you have a look at the Biomedical Engineering graduate website, you'll see a list of all core and elective courses that you can take. We can speak for core and elective courses within the Biomedical Engineering department. Outside of that, the Biomedical Engineering department, you might have to stay tuned to the other graduate directors for answers about online versus in-person courses for those electives.
All right. Thank you, Guy. And then this is just a reminder for those of you who are biomedical engineering students that Guy is going to have to leave in about 30 minutes. So if you have questions for him, please send those via the Q&A. And again, we will try to prioritize you as we're unmuting people at the end for questions. So next we're going to be hearing from computer science. We have Les Lander and Madhu Govindaraju, and you guys actually had slides, so I will put that in.
Hi, this is Madhu Govindaraju, professor in computer science. I would also like to congratulate you for getting admitted to computer science and making an excellent choice. We have many degree programs in the department. We offer BS, MS, and also the PhD degree in computer science. We have an information systems degree, which is a Bachelor of Science. It's a dual degree program with students from Turkey. We plan to start an MS in information systems, and our current goal is to have the first batch of students in fall 2021. We have a graduate certificate in cybersecurity that requires students to take courses both in ECE department and also in computer science. And if you take a certain list of courses, some required courses, some elective courses, you get a certificate and you have to apply for it separately. We also have a micro-credential in AI that requires students to take 2 core courses and then 2 electives. Now, all of these courses in the graduate certificate in cybersecurity in computer science and also the micro-credential courses in AI, they could also count towards your master's degree in computer science. So these are not separate courses that you would have to take. We have experience of dealing with a very large student body. We have 633 undergraduate students. We have a very large pool of master's students, 366 currently. And we have a very focused PhD program of close to 80 students. So approximately each faculty member has perhaps 2 or 3 PhD students that they work very closely with. And we see the number of faculty members and instructors and adjuncts who are teaching. We have close to 36 instructors teaching a variety of courses in computer science. Next slide, Maggie. So the way we have organized the courses in computer science, we call them areas of focus. So you could look at our courses and see what is it that you would like to specialize in. Now, these are not certificates or micro-credentials that you put in your resume. This is for you to self-select. So if you want to take courses in data science and information systems, we have categorized courses in data science. And I have a list here, for example, web data management, database systems, introduction to machine learning, information retrieval, introduction to data mining, introduction to visual information processing, and a planned course on deep learning. So these are all elective courses that the department is offering, and some we will offer. And these all fall in the data science category. Similarly, we have courses in AI and machine learning, cybersecurity, systems, wireless sensors, advanced programming. And we have 4 courses that are in the core track, which all students are required to take. Those courses are operating systems. We have design analysis of computer algorithms. We have programming languages. And which one? Computer architecture. So these are the 4 courses that all students have to take, and then you would choose electives from these areas of focus. You're not required to just take courses from one area of focus, but you could talk to the graduate director, Professor Lander here, or any faculty member and self-select courses based on your interest here, just to show the wide variety of courses that we have. Our current plan is to have the orientation on August 19th. We'll have it online. The specific time slot will be emailed to you. We may have multiple orientation sessions because some of our students could be outside of the US, the ones who are starting in falls. So we'll have multiple sessions, and a time slot will be emailed to you to your Binghamton email address sometime in July. Our process of registration is to start it after the orientation session. During the orientation session, Professor Lander here will actually talk to you about the courses that have slots for you to register. He'll also explain what each course is about, and based on your background, based on the prerequisites you need, and based on your interests, he would advise you what are the sequence of courses you should take in fall and spring, courses you should take in the second year. And after you've heard his discussion about these courses, you would fill out a Google form giving your priority for courses. And then over the next few days after that, we would be registering you directly. So students do not directly register for graduate courses. The department would register them after we get your interests. We have a list of courses that we have compiled here. These are the courses that will be offered online, but we're currently thinking of all courses to be in HyFlex mode, but the situation could change depending on how many courses we want to be HyFlex, and perhaps some courses that could be online. These courses are primarily designed to be guaranteed courses for fall 2020 admits, which includes you, which is programming languages and design analysis of computer algorithms. These are required courses. So we typically advise students to take 2 core courses and then take 1 elective. And if you're really confident, you could take 2 electives, again, based on advice from the graduate director. So introduction to data mining, introduction to machine learning, visual information processing, computer security, and a course on AI. These are the electives that we've designed or scheduled just for fall 2020 students. If you have any questions, please post on chat. Thanks, Maggie.
All right. Thanks so much, Madhu. So next we're going to be hearing from Professor Vladimir Nikulin for the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. Welcome everybody. The EC department will have orientation for new students within a week before the semester starts. We don't have the exact date set yet, but once we do, this information will be emailed to you. The registration typically happens after the orientation because we do have to address some of the questions, and students sometimes wonder what do they have to take in the first semester, and what are the program requirements. So just to give you a little bit of information, we do have, for example, for the master's program, we have 7 areas of focus. Those includes things like DSP and communication, information assurance, control systems, power and energy, and so on. And MS students would have to take a certain number of courses in that specific area of focus that they choose. But we also do have breadth course requirement where you have to take courses from other areas. Then you do have electives. All of that will be discussed in detail during the orientation. The format is going to be actually combined. We still plan to do in person, but at the same time, you will be able to connect via Zoom at the same orientation time. And I do plan to have a recording of the orientation available if any students miss it, but would like to watch it a little bit later. As far as the course selection for the fall semester, I believe every single graduate course that we have will be available online, either as online hybrid or online asynchronous. There's a little bit of difference between the two, but pretty much any course that you would like to take, if you're not in the area, you should still be able to. I think that's all I would have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vlad. Again, if you guys have questions specifically for the departments, you can be sending those via the Q&A. So next is material science and engineering. I understand that Professor Guo Wen is not on the call. So Professor Cho, are you able to speak to any of these points regarding orientation, registration, or course offerings for material science?
I think Professor Cho is here.
Oh, is he there?
I'm back. Yeah.
Hi. Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't see anything. Hi, Guo Wen.
Problem. Yeah. So welcome to Binghamton. So I'm Guo Wen Zono. I'm a co-director of Material Science and Engineering program. So MSc program is highly interdisciplinary program with departments from both engineering and science. Okay. So the program offers PhD degree and also master degrees. So for master degrees, so we have like a regular thesis-based, and we have course-based and also project-based options. And also we have now we have 4+1 programs for MSc plus chemistry and also physics. And also we are currently working on MSc 4+1 program with mechanical engineering. So we have 3 options. So the program right now we are planning to have an orientation scheduled for Monday, August 24th. Okay, so it will be I think it will be like a Zoom, like online will be an option for students if they are not able come to campus. And so, and also for the courses we are going to offer for the fall semester. So first, we have like an in-class option, and also students can take it remotely. So yeah, so that's now we have a hybrid mode. And also the courses we are going to offer, including some core courses like thermodynamics, like techniques for studying materials, like crystallography. And also we also are going to offer some specialized courses like mechanical properties of materials. So I would suggest the students to contact faculty members and also potential advisors to seek some advice about courses they can choose for the fall semester. I think it's pretty much I have. Feel free to ask or to email us if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Gawain. I appreciate it. Okay. So next we have mechanical engineering. So Paul Sherratt is the graduate director for mechanical engineering, but he has just recently had a baby, actually a week ago now, and so he's not on the call today, but he did share information with me over email. So I'm going to be relaying that on behalf of the mechanical engineering department. So with regard to the orientations, they're going to be having 2 different sessions. The first is going to be Tuesday, August 25th at 10 a.m. This is for all master students, including 4+1 students. So that's Tuesday, August 25th at 10 for all master students. And then immediately following that, Tuesday the 25th at 11 is going to be the PhD student orientation. And then immediately following that at noon, they're going to be doing a in-person Q&A session for any new graduate students who are able to physically attend. The plan, I understand from Professor Sherratt, is to try to allow for some kind of online participation of that Q&A session, but the primary objective would be for students to have the majority of their questions answered during their designated orientation time slot. The registration information is going to be shared as part of orientation. As with many of the departments, they're going to be helping you through that process, but it will be happening after orientation. When it comes to course selection, if you're a mechanical engineering PhD student, it's highly recommended that you check in with your advisor as to what courses they would recommend. They're going to know what's available and being offered in your specific area. For master students, the best options are going to be either numerical methods or analytical methods. And then secondly, elasticity or fluid dynamics, design, and then one more tech elective. Again, as with many of the departments, they're planning on having a pretty robust offering of electives available online, but they're still finalizing what that list is going to be. So please do be checking your @binghamton.edu email address for those of you who have already been through that process and have paid your deposit, so that they can ensure that they get you more information that way. There are details about all of these courses, the ones I mentioned, numerical methods, analytical methods, elasticity, fluid dynamics, and design, all on the website. So if you want to get a few more details about what's being offered in that course, so that maybe when you come into orientation, you have a good idea about which ones are going to be a good fit for you, that is certainly an option, and we would encourage you to check out the website. So if you have additional questions for mechanical engineering, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to their department. So they have megrad@binghamton.edu, and you can reach out to them over email if you've got specific questions about course offerings, or especially for PhD students, if you're perhaps unsure about who your advisor is, since they're the person you need to talk to about finalizing your course schedule. Okay, and so then finally, we have our Department of System Science and Industrial Engineering, for whom we have Professor Mohammed Kasabneh and Hiroki Sayama.
Thank you very much, Maggie, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the System Science and Industrial and Engineering Department. Before I start, I just wanted to let you know that our department is the second largest graduate program at Binghamton University, right after computer science. And I'm also delighted to let you know that SSIE houses the highest ranked graduate program at Binghamton University. There are 17 graduate programs at Binghamton that are ranked by US News and World Report. 14 of them are in the top 100. And SSIE is the highest ranked graduate program. I would also like to mention that industrial and systems engineering is definitely a great choice with various, of course, concentrations, because a few days ago, there was an article that was posted by US News and World Report that talked about 8 recession-proof majors and careers, and industrial engineering was on that list. And there are also several application areas that were listed in that article. Logistician, for example, is an area that industrial and systems engineers often work in, the area of logistics, supply chain management, and so on. And also healthcare as an application area is another very popular career for our industrial and systems engineering graduates with the health systems concentration, and also for those who are enrolled in our healthcare systems engineering degree. So I just wanted to start with that, because many of you are probably, wondering, what degree program to pursue, what concentration to pursue, and so on and so forth. And that leads us to the slide that you can see in the webinar. Our department offers quite a few degree programs. We offer bachelor's and master's and PhD in industrial and systems engineering. And we also offer master's and PhD in system science. And I'm glad that Dr. Hiroki Sayama, who is our graduate director for system science, is also on this call if you have any specific questions related to system science. In addition to these 2 most traditional degree programs, ISC and SS, we also offer a degree program in healthcare systems engineering. And then whether you are in system science or in ISC, you can specialize formally in the area of health systems, whether you are an on-campus student, an online student, or if you want to pursue the degree program in our Manhattan program, which is a Saturday-only program that can be completed in 1 year. Those are all available options for students. We also have several Master of Engineering degree programs. One in industrial engineering, another in systems engineering, and we also have one that is pending approval from SUNY that focuses on engineering management. And many of you who have been in touch with us, more specifically about engineering management, we wanted to let you know that once the program is approved, if you are already in our master's program, we will be able to switch you to the engineering management program once it's approved. That's a fairly straightforward process. Next, please. In terms of orientation, as my colleagues mentioned, registration begins on August 10th, and that's why our department has decided to hold our orientation on August 6th, so a few days before the registration begins. Of course, when registration begins, you can register on your own. However, if you're looking for advice about what courses to take, depending on the various concentrations and so on, you will be able to attend this orientation to learn more about the various focus areas, in addition to the health systems and complex systems as concentration areas and certificate programs. We also have, quite a few informal focus areas in supply chain management and logistics, data science and analytics, advanced manufacturing, electronics manufacturing and packaging, and so on. So our orientation will be held online using Zoom. It will be from 1 to 4 p.m. on August 6th. You will be able to join the orientation live using a Zoom link that will be sent to you closer to the event. But this event, if you are unable to join, will be recorded, and we will be able to follow up with you at a later stage in case you want to have one-on-one meeting with the faculty or the graduate directors. As part of the orientation, we will introduce our faculty members. We have a fairly large department with 27 faculty members. We're actually among the top 5 industrial engineering programs in the US for faculty size. So you will get to see our faculty, the areas in which they teach, in which they do research. You will be introduced to our wonderful staff, Erin, Lindsay, and Tracy, who will be working very closely with you on various aspects related to your graduate education. Given that you are graduate students, most of your interaction will be with Lindsay Bukta and Erin Hornbeck, who are here joining us today in case you have any questions for them. We will also talk about the various degree programs that I mentioned on the previous slide, and we'll also review the courses. So you will get to see some of them as part of this presentation. Those are the available 500 level courses in our department. All of these will be available online. Some of them are offered in the HighFlex model, where there will be an on-campus section and an online section and so on. But if you are pursuing the degree, at least initially remotely, you will be able to sign up for any of these classes online. Those are what we call the master's level classes at the 500 level. All the core courses for system science and for industrial engineering are offered in the fall. You might already know that SSIE 500 and SSIE 501, for example, are core courses for system science. And SSIE 501, SSIE 510, and SSIE 553 are core courses for the industrial and systems engineering track. And we also have several healthcare courses, and those are either core courses or electives for the healthcare systems engineering degree program. Next, please. And next is our PhD level courses. For master students, every master student is required to take at least one 600 level course. So even though you're not a doctoral student, you may not be a doctoral student, you have to take at least one doctoral level course. You can do this in the fall, in the spring, or in your second academic year, or even during the summer, because we do offer at least one 600 level course during the summer. We're offering one this summer, and we will be offering one again next summer, which is SSIE 605. But as you have seen from the previous list and this list, whether it's manufacturing or engineering management, analytics, healthcare, supply chain management, optimization, we do have quite a few options for students to choose from. And if you are not sure what classes to take, again, our graduate directors, Dr. Sarah Lam and Dr. Hiroki Sayama, will be able to guide you in this process. If any of the students joining us today are doctoral students, I just want to remind you that our doctoral program follows a learning contract structure where there is no formal list of core courses that we require. It's customized based on the student's background and based on their academic interests and so on. Depending on the student background, in some cases, the graduate director will expect you to take some of the fundamental courses in system science or industrial engineering. But the main requirement is that for doctoral students, they need to take at least 8 courses, with 3 to 5 of them being at the 600 level. For master students, it's either 8 courses plus 6 credits of thesis, or 9 courses plus 3 credits of project, and with one of these 8 or 9 being at the 600 level. Next, please. So given that some of our students have told us that depending on our plan for the fall, they're interested in possibly starting part-time as opposed to starting full-time, what we would like to inform you that we have come up with a smaller list of courses that we would like to recommend for those of you that would like to start the program part-time, at least initially, or maybe online during the fall semester until they join us in person, possibly in the spring, even though a lot of these courses have an in-person component as well. We're going to highly recommend one or more of the courses listed on the slide: SSIE 500, 501, 505, 510, and 553. And those are basically the core courses for our system science and our industrial and systems engineering programs. So as you will hear in the orientation, our graduate director are going to recommend that you take at least 1 or 2 of these in the fall. This way you don't fall behind in the spring and future semesters by skipping any of the core courses. And next, please. How to register? As I mentioned earlier, the registration begins formally on August 10th, and you can register on your own. However, if you would like to talk to the graduate directors in advance and review your choices based on your plan, you're welcome to connect with the graduate director. Our graduate directors are Dr. Sayama for system science, Dr. Sarah Lam for industrial engineering, or myself for the healthcare systems engineering programs. Self-registration will be available through BU Brain. This is the platform that we use for student records and registration and so on and so forth. And if you are pursuing the degree via Enginet, which is our distance education program, in addition to Lindsay and Erin as your contact folks for all issues related to graduate program, Ms. Janice Kinzer is in charge of the Enginet program, so she can help you with additional questions related to your status in the program as an Enginet student. And we know sometimes the way the courses listed and be in the schedule, sometimes they can create confusion, but just so you know, section 20 typically on our schedule is an online course. Sometimes it says, a DI learning, distance education learning. So you might be able to tell just by looking at the notes. However, typically section 20s are those that are offered on an Enginet. And if you have any questions, any doubts about the issues with registration, please feel free to contact Lindsay Bukta. She's the graduate secretary in the department, and she can assist you with the registration process.
Right.
And that's all I have. And if you have any questions, Dr. Sayama is here, Erin Hornbeck and Lindsay Bukta, and I will be here, so you can feel free to ask your questions through the Q&A component. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed. And so with that, we're actually going to be heading into our Q&A session. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. For the interest of time, I know Professor German is going to have to leave pretty quickly. If anybody is an attendee from biomedical engineering and you have a question you'd specifically like to ask Professor German, please do the raise your hand option and I can unmute you and you can ask your questions there. Or again, you can submit it via the Q&A feature. So I'll give just a second for anybody to raise their hand. Okay, I don't see anybody jumping on that opportunity. And so actually one thing I would really like to do before we jump into some of our larger Q&A portions of this would be to give Monica Majors, who, as I said earlier, is our Assistant Dean for Excellence and Diversity, or Diversity and Inclusive Excellence, to come onto the call and talk about her thing. But actually, before you do that, Monica, I'm sorry, Guy, do you have anything that you would like to say to biomedical attendees before you have to go?
I don't have anything specific. I know that throughout this orientation, or throughout all these presentations, a lot of questions you might be thinking about asking. You have my email address. I'll be more than happy to answer all questions individually. Please reach out to me if you're unclear about anything. But the whole point of the orientation on on August 21st is to provide you with all of the information. So please don't forget to register and attend the orientation on August 21st. We will be sending details out to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Guy. I appreciate you taking the
Maggie.
time. Okay, so with that, Monica, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, and if you just want to talk a little bit about your role and maybe some questions students might have for you. I understand the Q&A has been slightly quiet this morning as compared to some of our other sessions, and so I thought we might preempt a little bit of that.
Thank you, Maggie. And I will echo my colleagues. Congratulations, everyone, for being accepted and making the great decision to become a Bearcat. I too ventured here from somewhere outside of New York for work, but this is a great place to be. And so you're making a great decision, not only academically, but for your personal and professional life. So in my role, I specifically look to ways to enhance and foster our diverse climate here at Binghamton and specifically within Watson. And so my role hits a few things. I have a few grants that usually serve undergraduates, work on some faculty development. But I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing within Watson that you can take part in. In the fall, we'll actually have a student focus diversity inclusive training opportunity. It will be free for students, and we'll have another one in the spring. I challenge you to go because you pursue your education for a myriad of reasons, right? You need expertise to move into your career. But beyond technical expertise, you also need the social skills to move around as a global citizen. And so industry partners have been definitely talking to us about how we're preparing our students. We have won some awards, one of which is we are a great place for women to be educated and to work. And so we want to continue that. And so I challenge each of you to come visit me in my office if you come on campus, or if you cannot, you can definitely set up a Zoom call that probably is safer nowadays. And I'll be happy to speak with you. There's a specific opportunity that is still open for incoming students, and it's called the Decoding Project. That project is funded by one of our alum that currently works at Google, and what he wants to do is support diverse students, so women and underrepresented minorities, prepare for a career that might not necessarily be in computer science, but may have some coding elements to it. This program is a 2-year obligation, but it comes with a small living stipend, some training. Potentially over those 2 years, you may be able to travel to a national conference. If not, we pay the registration for you to do it virtually. But within that, right, you get to enter into a community of faculty, scholars, mentors that can help you move along your academic career and move into your professional career whenever you are ready. There are plenty of things going on at Binghamton and within Watson, and the faculty can tell you even more. Many of the faculty who are actually on the call here sit on the diversity committee. So the last thing I'll leave you with is if you ever have a question or you want to talk about some of the things going on within Watson, know that every department has a member on our diversity committee. They will be identified. You'll see a letter from me, but Hiroki is one of them right on the call. And so if you ever have any questions about that, you can always reach out to your department in particular, and it can share with you the things that we're doing. Thank you, Maggie. If anyone has any questions about that, if you applied for Clark, I have a few things about that, but not all the details. I'm always here to answer.
Thanks, Monica. I did also share some information about the Decoding Project through the chat feature, so that should be available to all of the attendees as well. If anybody can't see that, please do let us know. I don't see a whole lot going on in the Q&A. There is a question there. Oh, and now stuff's coming in. There is a question there, I will note, for Professor Gua Wen or maybe Jung Young. There's a question pending from a material science PhD student, so if you wouldn't mind answering that. And then Monica, there's a few questions that have come through about the decoding project, decoding program. So they're asking about the kind of experience required, as well as if it's available for incoming master's students.
So the program is available for any level of education as long as you will be a student in a degree granting program. So no certificate programs only, but all of you are here, so that means you're all eligible. And you actually need no coding experience to be a part of the program. If I could echo the sentiments of the funder, in his work, he's hired a neuroscience graduate, right, to work in his lab, who gained coding skills after the fact, kind of ad hoc, and moved into working on his team. And he found that she was very great at her work. And so he wants to duplicate that experience for other students. So you can not know a single thing about Python or Java, or you can be an expert in coding. Either way, you would benefit from the program.
Mm-hmm. I will also note that I saw a question had come through regarding whether or not students are able to sort of choose their track if they're doing the thesis or the project or whatever. 4+1 students, regular master's students, you know, how that works. And so I'm going to try to answer this, I think, for all the departments. And if I miss anything, departments, you can certainly unmute yourself and add to it. But my understanding is that all of our departments give you that flexibility. You do not have to be coming into the program saying, like, I am definitely going to do a thesis. You're able to make that determination a little bit later. And if you choose your mind, if you change your mind, that is also okay. The biggest thing would become if that ends up adding any time to your degree. Of course, it can take a little bit of extra time to do a thesis, the research that's required for that, things like that. So that's just something to be mindful of. You've heard us talking about the difference between the thesis and the project and a little bit about those options. So I just wanted to make sure that I addressed that. Do any of the departments have anything to add to that point? Don't see any unmuting. So Monica, what is the Clifford D. Clark Fellowship and what is the status of that? Or is it still open for fall 2020?
So our Clark Fellowship program is named after a previous president of the university, and it is a university-wide, highly competitive fellowship for students who come from single-parent households, have overcome adversity, or are underrepresented. They have to be domestic or permanent resident, which I assume all of you are. So applications typically go in quite early, and the committee meets and makes their final decisions about if students should be considered in February, right? And so that's the earliest deadline. However, we go through the process. And so to answer your question, most of the decisions have been made and letters have gone out, but we have been gifted with some additional funding for Clark. And so my last conversation with the graduate school was that additional offer letters were going out. So you could still hear something. You should reach out to your department, as they would get that information before I do. I get the final list of the students once they've accepted, but there are still offers going out. Very few, but still some.
So clarifying that, if a student had already applied, there's still a chance they might hear they've heard it, but it would be too late for someone who has not yet completed their application for the Clifford D. Clark Fellowship to do so. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the application would have had to be in before the February 15th deadline, which is when the committee met the last time. So if you did not put in an application, to my knowledge, the committee is not meeting again to review. Things are dynamic, as was said earlier, so that could change. But as of now, we are only considering students who were already nominated by their department.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, and Karen said check with the graduate school. Yes, please check with the graduate school.
Okay, so for students, it looks like all the questions have been answered that are currently in the Q&A. Please do be sending more there. But again, I'm just going to reiterate that you do have the option to do the raise your hand option. You should be able to see that there when you're looking at the panelists or participants, or even within the sort of the lower options there at the bottom, where you can see the different buttons. And so if you want to raise your hand, I can allow you to unmute yourself and you can ask your question there. So there is one question that just came in via the chat. So Vladimir, this is specifically directed toward electrical and computer engineering, but I believe most departments may have different answers for this. Has the role of teaching assistantships changed for the ECE department given the online course offerings?
Probably to some extent it will have to, but again, this is a very dynamic situation. So we're actually working on a plan how to like allocate TA resources to multiple courses. If in the past we would have, for example, a TA assigned to a specific lab course just to teach the labs, now with some of the content going online, we may even have TAs kind of grouped in clusters and maybe working on multiple courses. But it would still be the same type of responsibilities: grading, office hours, probably some lab supervision, hopefully. But you know, the way those efforts are allocated is probably going to change to some extent.
Thank you very much. Other departments, is there anything that you would like to add with regard to how your department is going to be handling specifically teaching assistantships in the fall semester? Or if some of that is still to be determined, I think that is perfectly acceptable. But
well, as you say, most of it's already been worked out, but there are odd things that still need to be decided. And with this online component, it's making it much more difficult to plan how we're going to use the resources.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Les. Okay, anybody else want to add anything before we move to the next question? Don't see anybody unmuting. Okay. So
yeah,
oh, go ahead, Gawin.
For MSc program, so we require students to volunteer, like for tier positions. So we want students to come on campus because there are some lab sessions. So for IA, if we not still get IA appointments, so I would suggest to discuss with the advisor to see so you can come up with a plan for either for like remote research or postpone the appointment to the spring semester. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other open questions. So we'll wait just a minute to see if anything else comes through on the Q&A. I also don't see that anybody has raised a hand. They usually pop up to the top of the list when they do. So I just want to reiterate again, students, that if you do want to ask a question verbally, you just have to do the raise your hand option. I'll select an option that allows you to unmute, and then you can ask your question directly of the department or of any of the leadership that's on this call. Or if you want to send anything through the Q&A, that is fine. So we'll give just a minute for some more of that to come through. Since it does seem like with questions sort of tapering off, we're going to be coming to the end of the session pretty quickly. I did want to go ahead and share, I know many of you answered the first poll when you first came in. There is a follow-up poll, which should be available to you now. You should be able to see that. Basically from this, we're trying to ascertain if this session was helpful and if you'd be interested in any further sessions. So that is available. Please do answer the questions there via the poll. We'll give a couple of minutes for those to come through as well. So then while you're answering those questions, since it does look like I don't see anything else coming through on the Q&A. Oh, but I do see someone has raised their hand. Okay, so Michael, I have selected to allow you to talk. You do have to unmute yourself and then you can ask your question. Michael, I can see you're, and then you muted again.
Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I have a question about funding opportunities for the spring semester. How would students go about finding ways to fund their education once they start attending Binghamton?
That's a great question. Can I ask what, I may have missed this, I apologize. What's your academic area?
Computer science.
Thank you very much.
Michael, did you just ask about in the chat about, well, maybe I shouldn't. I think we saw a question about Clark. I mean, if you're a new student and you do qualify for that, you should make sure that there was an application in there. We do have openings for funding every semester, but not a lot. So what often happens for new master's students is we have them in the program for one or maybe 2 semesters, and if they're doing well, we look for opportunities for them to get funding. Funding incoming master's students is very rare, except for Clark students, and mostly incoming funding goes to PhD students who are going to come and do research with our faculty.
All right, terrific. Thank you.
And email me, please, if you want more detailed questions.
Will do.
Thanks. We're going to be sharing our, I think, Maggie, we're going to be sharing our contact information on the chat, right?
Yes, I was actually just typing yours in now. So that should come through on the chat for you to see, Michael, if you want to reach out to Les specifically. There is also, computer science has a slightly more general email address as well, apply CS. So right. I'm going to be sending that over the chat as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Michael, do you have any other questions before I meet you back?
No, that should be it. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Okay, any other, if anybody else wants to raise their hand, we can do that. I think, again, we sort of got on top of the questions that were coming in over the Q&A, so that's great. And it looks like we've got pretty much everybody responding to the poll, so that's excellent. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to share my screen again just real quick so that, oh, sorry about that, so that everybody can see the contact information. So there's a ton of ways that you can connect with us, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, WeChat, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or WhatsApp. So all of that information is available. If you just search for Binghamton University or Binghamton University Watson School, particularly on the YouTube channel, we have a few videos that are students, current students, and recent alums sharing some of their experiences. So I would highly encourage you to check those out. And we also have some videos of faculty and graduate directors talking about courses that are available or research that's happening on campus. So I would encourage you to check those out as well. There is also some specific contact information here. Pretty much if you're on this session, you should already be connected with me on email. That's how you got these invitations and things like that. But my contact information is here on the slide, as well as Owusu's contact information. I know he's been helpful in the chat and the Q&A. He is our graduate recruiter for the School of Engineering and Applied Science. I have also included Karen Novello's information as she works for our university-wide Office of Graduate Recruitment. I think it's getting cut off, but at the very bottom, there is also contact information for the graduate school, which I know has also been shared via the chat. So I would encourage you to connect with them if you've got questions about the Clark Fellowship, or if you're wondering about the status of your application, things like that. They're a good office to reach out to, and they can sort of help you through the final steps of the process. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, see if I can see if there's any final questions that have come in. Doesn't look like it. So with that, I just want to thank everybody, both the student attendees, but also and most especially our faculty and staff for taking the time to be a part of this session and answer questions. Faculty and staff, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat, making sure that you're sending it to all panelists and attendees. If you're willing to share your contact information, that would be excellent, so that students can quickly reach out to you or to the department if they have additional questions. I will also take this opportunity to remind you, students, that a lot of this information, especially for those of you who have been admitted and paid your deposit, when you're looking for information about registration or orientation, that's going to be coming through on your binghamton.edu email address. So you want to make sure you've got that activated and that you're checking it, because we have reached a point in the cycle where the formal communication from the university is going to be going to that email address, not necessarily a personal email ID that you may have used for the application itself. So with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of today's session. For the faculty and staff that are on the call, do you have any final words before we close out the meeting? Okay, I don't see anybody unmuting. So thank you all so much for being a part of this. Students, you should be receiving a follow-up communication within the next couple of days that has the slides from today's session, as well as my contact information. And as I said, we're hoping to send out a recording of this session probably sometime next week. It's taking a little bit of time for us to get it down, clean it up, and then put it up online. So again, thank you so much for participating today. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we look forward to talking to you soon.